Hello everyone, this is Anna from our Paper Paradise, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to make this cute little succulent plant. Alright, let's start. So this will be an exercise in doing the same thing over and over again. Even though you have different packs of strips, you're always going to be repeating the same pattern for it. As you can see, all the leaves are the same shape, they just vary in size. That's because I glued two 15-inch strips together to get the size I needed. And all the other strips are going to be the same, just adding 2 more strips to each layer of the plant. Okay, we can start, and we will grab your strip. This is a slightly thinner paper than I usually use, but this is what allows us to do the effect that we're going to be doing here, which is curving the petals. If you do this with a wider paper, it's going to be harder to get the same effect. So you take your strip, you insert it into the slot on the quilling tool, you slide the strip all the way to the end, and then you start curling. Now I curl away from me, but you can curl towards you if that feels better to you. It really doesn't matter. Notice how I'm molding the strip down here, and I'm using this finger just to support it as I roll it. And I'm not holding it very tight. It flows through my fingers very easily. You just roll it until you run out of strip. There you have it. This is called a tight coil. Once you have it like this, you're going to take it off the strip. Be careful not to let it go. So we took this off the tool, and if you notice, it's really hard to shape this form right now. It's so condensed that you would have a very hard time making the pointed shape that these petals need. So what we're going to do is we're going to let it expand a little bit, and this has to be a very controlled expansion. Just giving it a little slack. And if you do too much, you can always pull it back down. And you see barely any slack. Okay. And once we have that, we can glue the edge down. All right. So you have one. We're going to repeat this 3 times for the smaller size strips. Always the same process. Insert your tool there. Start curling. Curl until the end. Once you're done, take it off. And now that you made that one, you can use it as a guide to let this guy expand the same amount. See how I'm holding it? You just slide it open until they match. There we have it. Can glue the end down. Repeat. You notice how this is happening here? Don't worry too much about it. Once we take it off, we can always flatten it. Now you want to be careful taking these off because sometimes the paper gets caught in the slot and they totally unravel from the center, and you don't want that. So you can use your thumb to press these up and help you take it off without that happening. Got that? You can use a toothpick to take a little bit of glue. You can place your Elmer's glue in a plate or container, then take the toothpick and take a little dab to put there. Your centerpieces are done. We are going to move on to the next size strips. These strips are made of 4 smaller strips glued together, but the process is exactly the same. You just slide the strip into the quilling tool and start curling. Use our fingers to guide it and hold it. Once you're done, you take it off the tool. We're going to let it expand a little bit again. Once you can let it expand and kind of feel how it starts being more pliable. That way you see when you can start shaping the coil without letting it uncurl too much. You glue the end and move on to the next one. This is always the same thing. We're just gonna go through all the packs of strips and curl them in the same way. Once you have the first one expanded to the size you need, and by the size you need, I mean the size that will let you shape it. It's not a specific size. You can move on to the next one and repeat the process. So I'm going to do that, and I'll let you know when we reach a point where we need to shape the pieces. See what I told you about the coils just coming undone when you try to take it off? So this is not a problem. You can just start over. Kind of uncoil it all and start over. Of course, the bigger this gets, the This is a lot of curling, and if you're not used to it, you might have to take breaks between the several packs of strips. Also, take it slow. I'm doing it fairly fast because I'm more practiced, but if this is your first time doing the quilling, take it slow. You will also want to uncurl your strips and keep them as straight as possible to avoid them from tangling and making it harder on yourself. So if you can, just stretch them out, and when you're going to start curling, just take one out away from the others. That way you get a continuous curling strip without having to stop and entangle. You notice that when I have to stop, I hold the strip like this so it doesn't uncurl as I'm doing something else with the other hand. That way you're safeguarded. As the strips get longer, you will start getting bigger rolls, and you will start using this finger to rest the roll on, as well as this fingers to kind of hold it in place. So it becomes a teamwork here. And this will need a little bit of practice, but if it untangles, and you just have to start over. So see, it entangled, so I'm just gonna roll it back up, slip it out. Now it's really important that you push with your thumb, push it out of the tool. The bigger the coils are, the easier it is for the center to try and fall off. So when you're doing this, you want to make sure you are keeping everything lined up and not let the center just fall from inside the coil. Oh, that can happen when you start getting that big. While you're trying to let it uncoil a little, the center might not want to uncoil and just fall right out of the open coil. No problem, you just hold it in your hands and curl it back up. That's why I'm doing it on my hand. It's to kind of give it a little bit of support. When it doesn't want to uncoil like that, you want to help it by moving the center along. See, I'm still having trouble getting any squishiness from that, so I'm going to keep letting it open a little more. And you see that the outside is already open, but the center is still struggling there, so I'm going to push it around a little bit to give it a little more pliability. So don't stress about it, just keep working with it gently until you have it. You'll notice that if you roll the strip one way, it tightens the center. If you roll it the other way, it loosens the center. And that's just about how we manipulate these things. Now, sometimes with this sort of thin strip, the tool will kind of not be holding the center anymore. So I'm turning it, and this is not rotating anymore. At that point, you can take it out of the coil and just roll the rest with your hands. Or you can unroll it and start from the beginning. That's an option too. You'll see me kind of doing this. It helps loosen the coil a little bit. Now that you have your petals coiled, we are going to start shaping them. Shaping them is always the same thing. They're all going to have the same shape. You'll notice that they're not all the same openness. The tiny ones open a lot more in the center. So I'm going to hold the center and rotate it so that it's getting tighter in the center and more open on the side, because the side is what we're going to shape, so we want that part a little more open. So once you have done that, you can hold the center, and we're going to pinch this side. And we're going to repeat this process for all of them. So I'm gonna just speed this up a little bit. Now some of these might be a little harder to shape. They might be a little tighter, but just keep working on it, because that's all you need to do is get that teardrop shape. Now that we've given it the petals the shape that we want to give them a little curve, and they are going to be more curved. The smaller ones will be more curved, and as we go out they are going to be flatter until they're almost flat. So to do this, you have to be very careful manipulating these guys. To give these guys a curve, you're going to have to be careful of how you do this. So we want to push the center outward, but you always want to do it in a controlled fashion so that it doesn't just pop out and you lose your coil. That's about how you want your smaller ones to look. And in order to keep this in this position, we have to glue it in this position. So what we're going to do is layer some glue in there. And you can use a Q-tip to spread this around. I just use my little finger. You want an even coat all around, all the way to the edge. And you always want to be holding the back, so when you're pressing it, it doesn't just pop out. So once you have that, we're going to set this aside to dry. And we're going to do the same to all of them. So I'm just going to speed through it, and I'll move to the next step once I'm done. As we move to the bigger petals, it might be easier for you to lay the glue on top of the flattened one and then spread it and then shape it. rubbing your fingers is how you get the glue out of them. Once you're done with all of them, you have to let them dry real well, and then we'll start assembling our succulent. As you can see from the back of it, the petals will be layered on top of each other, so the first ones are all the way back there, and they're all close tied together as like a rosebud, and the next layer of them will be a little more open and a little more open, and so on until you have the bottom layer, which is almost flat to the ground. Now I made 5 layers. Each layer of petals increases 2 strips of 15 inches, but you can continue layering up as many petals as you want, and as you go out you'll need more petals to cover the same or the distance at the bottom. So the next layer might be, you might be able to do just the same size for petals, but if you do another one you probably need 5 petals. And as you glue the petals you want to move them outwards a little bit from the center so that when you flip it they show on this side. All right, let's start the gluing process. We start with these 3 little guys, and as I said before, they're going to be really clustered together and closed. You put the glue on the inside here, and you really lay it on because you want this to stick. You grab one of them, you're going to put this one inside of that, and you can let this dry before you move to the next step. I'm not going to do that just for the sake of this video. So we are going to put the glue on the inside there, and on the outside here. Notice how I have all my fingers holding this together. This little guy is going to go on the inside of that one and on the outside of this one. So you see the pattern emerging here. It's on the inside of this one, outside of that one. Inside here, outside here, inside here, outside here. Makes a nice little triangle. And you really have to take your time and let the glue dry before each step, or you're just making it harder on yourself. The next set of petals, we are going to layer the glue on the bottom of them. Again, you want a good quantity of glue there. And we're going to offset. We're going to put this petal covering 2 of the other ones. and we don't want it all closed. We want it a little open. And the roundness of this will help you set them in the right place. Same with the other guys. You might want to layer the glue down in all 3 petals before you start placing them. Whatever is easier for you. And they might want to overlap a little bit in certain places, which is perfectly fine. And while the glue is not dry, you can always manipulate it and make sure you have them placed where you really want them. As you can see, this might take a little while for you to get it where you want it. Think I've got it. I'm not messing with it anymore. I'm just gonna let it dry for a bit. Now you notice that the color of this guy is a little different from the color of you have there, and also there's different colors on here. Basically for this guy I just used whatever green I had on hand, and by the end of it I didn't have enough of the same green to complete this, so I ended up adding different colors of green. You can do the same thing. It adds a little personality. You can also wrap, you know, certain succulents have orange shade to the edges or purple shade to the edges. You can always add an orange or purple strip at the end of the coil just to give it that edge. Let's move on to the next step. This dries pretty fast. So next step, we have 4 petals. We have to fit these guys over there, so this might be a little more challenging, and they might overlap in certain spots. Same process, you layer the glue on the bottom. You want to bring it to the edge too, just in case they overlap. You want this to glue to the other petals. At this point, it might be helpful to turn it upside down and just see where you're laying them. I'm already layering them on top of each other because I'm pretty sure I won't have room to make them just touch the sides. And once you have them set, you can move them around a little. And this is why you have to let the other ones dry very well, because otherwise they start falling apart. You can always go in and add more glue, especially once you realize where they're going to lay. You can just lather it on there. And also you can always go in and see, oh, that touches there, so I'm going to add a little bit more glue on that side. This glue dries clear, so you don't have to worry about it being seen in the end. Again, you want to let this dry real well before you move to the next step. You want to keep placing the petals sort of offset from the inner layer, so they kind of fit in the gaps between the other petals. Just makes it look a little more organic. Next set of petals, same exact procedure. If we flip this around, you see how it's starting to move away from the center. These ones are flatter than these guys, so they're going to be a little easier to place. As you can see, they tend to open by themselves. You don't have to force them. And that's something you want to keep in mind as well, is while you're shaping these, the flatter you make them, the more open they will lay when you are gluing them on. So if you want a more open succulent, you will make the petals flatter. Notice I am lifting this very gently, barely touching it, just placing it there and leaving it. I'm not fussing with these guys as much. See what happens once I started fussing, the other ones fell down. So you want to keep that to a minimum. And if you notice that they're falling down, you can always go in there with a little bit of glue and just putting it on the side of the petal, so that when they are brought together, they will glue to each other and stay in place. And we wait again for it to dry. We're at the last set of petals. You'll notice that sometimes you'll get a little accumulation of glue in certain places. You can just scrape it off with your nails, or you can even take a little sandpaper to it if you need. But most of the time you just do that and it's gone. Same process, lay on the glue. And it's almost better to do it this way, where you put the glue first and then you lay them where they should be, because by the point you're going to lay them down, the glue will be a little tackier, so that it dries faster. Again, place them offset of the other petals. You might want to start with opposite sides and then put the other two in, just to balance things out. At this point, you want to go in between these petals and put a little bit of glue there, because they're going to be touching each other, and that strengthens the bond. And I will go over it again. I'll go over it in this one so you can see it. I'm not moving this because it's not dry yet and I don't want it to fall apart. Okay, so what I did there was just go right here where the petals are touching and put a little bit of glue there to make them stick together a little better. And I did it all around. That's basically it. And there you have it. Your little succulent is complete. You let it dry. Once it's dry, and you just grab this little guy and place it in there. And you have a plant that will never die on you. If you're going to place this in somewhere where it's sunny, I recommend that you give it, spray it with Krylon Clear Coat, the UV protection kind. There are several finishes. I usually use matte, but you can choose whichever you prefer. Give it 2 coats, let it dry, and you have a protected little succulent. If you try this class, share the results with me. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.